Hey everyone, this is Shareity Speaks. Welcome to the show this week. And this week we actually have a very special guest, Mike Malone. He's here to share with us what modern brand experiences look like. And here to intro him also is my colleague Tyler. So Tyler, why don't you say welcome to Mike?
Yeah, Mike Malone is a senior marketer who specializes in creative strategy, account management, and business development. He develops breakthrough promotional campaigns, content, and brand experiences that drive higher engagement and grow businesses. He's worked with clients like Pringles, Starbucks, Walmart, Diet Coke, Hasbro, and more. Welcome, Mike.
Hey Mike.
Hello. Hello.
Hope you're doing well today.
I am doing just fabulous.
Awesome. So I figured we'd jump right into it.
Yes, do it.
Yeah. So for our audience members who may not know that much about brand experiences, can you just define that really quickly and just tell us a little bit about what you think brand experiences are?
Yeah, it's a pretty broad topic. I mean, you can get, when most people hear that word, they think of experiential marketing or, event marketing, sponsorship marketing, things like that. But it's really, in my opinion, it's really anytime there, P&G used to have an amazing an acronym called FMOT, which is first moment of truth. And that was, we had to weave that into basically everything we did for any of the brands at Procter & Gamble, but it really defined, to me, what a brand experience is, which is anytime a consumer interacts with a brand, that's a brand experience. It could be a commercial, it could be an event, it could be on social media. It's really any platform where consumers and brands are interacting.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, consumers and brands are kind of interacting in different ways now that, the internet has become such a big part of how we consume media. So I was wondering if you had any specific thoughts on that. Like, how has the online social space that we're living in now changed the way that we interact with brands?
Well, I think brands have to have a story. It's not about just putting a product up there and hoping people buy it, or coming up with some catchy, taglines or things like that. You have to be able to really, consumers want to know, what the brand stands for, what their ethos is, what their narrative is, their personality. You look at brands like, a Red Bull or Apple, they have a very defined kind of brand presence. You know what you're going to get when you engage with those brands. Other brands, really struggle with that. And it's very tough. It's a very tough thing to do, is figure out what your brand persona is, but the brand persona has to really live across all touch points. So no matter, where you are, whether it's online or offline, you want to have a consistent voice. You obviously have to tweak it. Obviously, digital and social media have made it much more narrative based. So it's really about storytelling and content. So you really have to, tell your brand story through the content you create, whether it's through an influencer or whether it's just through original IP. Or bar IP, as it might be if you're doing a partnership with a movie studio or a partnership with an artist, or sponsoring an NFL team, or whatever it is. You have to figure out how that voice lives through social media, but it's also the fact that it's all very short form. You have about 2 seconds to grab a consumer nowadays, and that's it. So if you don't really wow them or excite them or make them laugh or cry, you're not going to really have a chance at, you won't get that second chance, or it's very rare that you do. So I think it's really about the brand is how to get that moment across, or how to get that message across in a very short time frame, which is why social media is, a lot of it's just images and very short form video. It's helping them kind of take that conversation, condensing it into kind of the micro for consumers.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting point you bring up, because I feel like, nowadays there's a lot of talk about, short form media is really like, eye catching. It's really catching people's attention, like Super Bowl ads and such. But at the same time, what you're referencing is also kind of this overarching brand journey, like having that sort of overall like narrative storytelling experience. Like, how do you think those two interplay with each other?
Well, yeah, I mean, again, I think it's about, understanding what your voice is as a brand. What do you stand for, and what do you, what's your jam? If you're Red Bull, it's all about, kicking ass and doing crazy stuff. If it's Apple, it's about, curated, very, they target creative people. Their whole thing is about creativity. So if you're running content on the Apple channel, the content has to ladder up to that ethos of the brand. So you have to be, talking about creativity or content creation or visual or graphic creation of some kind. Otherwise, you're off brand. Red Bull, if you look at their social handles, it's all people doing, diving off of cliffs or doing amazing, skydiving stunts and things like that. So their content ladders up to their brand message. So they really have to work in tandem with each other. If they don't, there's going to be a disconnect, and consumers will just back off.
Yeah, absolutely. On that topic, sort of, what would you say is the defining characteristic of a good brand experience? How do you think a good brand experience can really build on that, customer brand relationship?
Well, I think the consumer has to walk away knowing what the brand stands for, knowing what their value proposition is, knowing what they can get out of it, and also what the brand is doing with them. It's really a two-way conversation now. It used to be in the brand world would just send out marketing messages and hope consumers would receive it. Now brands really want to dialogue with the consumer. They want to create, that kind of relationship with the consumer. So, I just think it's just really, really important for the ideal brand experience is it's whatever the brand's objective is. If the brand objective is to leave you with like Apple, that it's well designed, high quality, supports creative people, then when you go into the Apple store, you have to be able to. You want to walk away with like, wow, those guys really understood me. The store was really, Apple is, from their packaging to their stores, everything is very well designed, very consumer focused. So when you walk into an Apple store or you go onto their website, it's all those experiences are all consistent, and so you want the consumer to, walk away with a positive impression. You want the consumer walk away with obviously an intent to purchase, and ideally, the ultimate scenario is you want to build a relationship with that consumer, so that, like for me, I'm a Apple loyalist. I will never buy a PC. Only if I'm working at a company that has a PC will I ever use one. So, so you want people to kind of not just be brand. There's different levels of there's like brand prophets, there's brand ambassadors. So obviously the goal is to turn consumers into those kind of brand prophets, so that you're like, oh my God, you have to buy Red Bull over, Monster drink, because Red Bull gets into extreme sports, and you and I both love extreme sports, so let's support that brand. They're more about my lifestyle than Monster, which might be more about music or something else. So it's giving consumers the understanding that you add value to their life in some level. The product, the service, the message, what they represent, what they stand for.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting point. It reminded me of we had a webinar last week, but essentially one of the points that one of our speakers Shingy touched on was that brand experiences now are less about feeding a certain message to consumers versus building on what they already have in their lives, like catering to what they care about, and like finding them, connecting with them where they are, instead of like force feeding them essentially like a certain type of narrow messaging.
Yeah, well, yeah, you have to go on their. It's going to be on their terms. Consumers have much more power today than they've ever had. So if you're gonna woo a consumer, you got to do it on their turf. So if your consumer is a soccer junkie, then you have to. I worked on Heineken. Heineken knew their consumer. There's a European brand. Their consumer was very soccer engaged. So they didn't sponsor the NBA. They sponsored, Major League Soccer, because that's where their consumer was. So you have to market on their terms. And again, it's really about creating a conversation and a dialogue. It's got to be two-way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, also I'm curious, since you're sort of on that marketing side and, you worked with a lot of big brands, obviously, have you seen a shift in the way that like these bigger companies think about brand experiences in the past few years?
Well, I think there's been a dramatic shift, with the internet, because the internet has made a lot of brands commodities, unless you really are, if you're, a snack brand, there's about 50,000 potato chips out there now. Amazon sells probably 400 different brands of snacks. So they've democratized, the internet has really democratized, the consumer experience and consumer offerings. And so you've seen, I think social media was a big part of it, but I think it's just there has been just an explosion of new products out there. I think the internet allowed that to happen. I think you're seeing things like the Amazons, but also like Shopify and Wix and all these things. So there's just so many more products out there. So brands, in the old days, if you were Frito-Lay, you owned the market. You had 80% market share, and no one was going to touch you, and you could do whatever you wanted, and it didn't really matter. But now, if you're Frito-Lay, you got to worry about that organic chip brand that's buzzing on social media, which is why, like, if you look at a brand like La Croix, the seltzer brand, they have zero media dollars, but they have built $1 billion brand strictly through social media because they create really fun, cool content that consumers love. And all of a sudden, they're competing with Bubbly and some of the Pepsi, SKUs. So I would say, the last probably 20, 25 years, brands have obviously, some brands have done it way better than others, but I think all brands have realized, they can't just, do the same as usual. And obviously the agency world too. I mean, agencies used to focus on, when I worked at Gray, everyone hailed the 30-second spot. It was the all being god of commercial marketing. And nowadays these agencies are scrambling because 30-second ads don't do squat. People DVR them. They're cord cutters. Pick your poison. But the traditional way of reaching consumers has completely shifted. And also the demographic too. You have the younger demographic is challenges brands. They want to make brands earn their business. When I was growing up, we went to McDonald's or we went to Burger King. It was really about proximity or which had the Jones 4, but it really wasn't. There wasn't really a lot of choices. Now there are so many choices, and I think the younger generation has been raised on this, and so they're more. So you see, millennials and Gen Z being, more about, what are you doing for me? How are you helping me? Because if you don't, there's 50 other guys out there that will do it. It's like the car shopping model. It's like if you go to a car dealership, the second you get pressured by the dealer guy, you're like, I'm walking. And that's how consumers are. They're not going to be pressured. They're not going to be told what to do. And so yeah, I think brands have completely pivoted away from talking at versus talking with.
I think, the online discourse model has really shifted too, because as you said, people have a lot of feedback. They have a lot of thoughts about the way that brands do advertising. And obviously they're going to share that on social media too. So, if you run a bad ad, people are going to really hone in on that and sort of even attack you for it. But yeah. So
and on top of that, it's also just, those ads aren't working. People they're not even paying attention to them unless you have like a big celebrity or the ad's like really, really different. It's background noise, so you can't rely on that anymore. That's just not the way things work. So I think it's the digital thing. And I just think I think it's just, I think it's mostly about just a function of competition, and that if you have to play you have to go where the consumers are. They're not going to come to you.
Absolutely. And, finally, I sort of wanted to, touch on a potential example, but I thought the best example would probably be the Super Bowl, actually, because that's sort of a recent thing. And it's such a, tradition in America and just in terms of advertising. And I wonder, how do you sort of see those trends popping up or not popping up in, for example, this year's Super Bowl ads?
You mean as far as companies like the charity? You mean like the pulling out and returning in turn of? Because I didn't see what Pepsi did that one. At least I don't remember too well because that was already like a month and a half ago. So if you want to, you might have to
No, I just
remind me. I don't really remember that campaign.
In general terms of brand experience, there were a lot of brands who were running ads with big name celebrities. There was Cardi B, there's Serena Williams, all these big people.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people felt a little jaded or disillusioned by just them being they're very quirky, fun ads, but at the same time it's not very other than the fact that they threw a big name in there that some people might like people still have goodwill towards those celebrities, but they may not, they don't seem to have that much buy-in into the advertisements themselves.
Well, I think there's a couple of points. The first point to note is that the Super Bowl is really an event in of itself. Having worked at Gray, we would compete to see who gets a Super Bowl spot, right? A Super Bowl spot is not necessarily about, a long-term campaign. Super Bowl spots are stunts. They're created in a vacuum, not really a vacuum, but in a very concise window. They're there to maximize the 200 million or a billion eyeballs, get some buzz on Ad Age, create some noise on social media for a week, and then they usually disappear. You're not seeing too many brands that are going to extend that too. Because of that, that's why when you're pitching a piece of creative to your boss and say, okay, well, yeah, I like the idea, but wouldn't it be better if we had Cardi B in it, or wouldn't it be better if we had Ashton and Mila in it? And if you're a brand that can afford those levels of talent, sure, you're going to use them. But my philosophy with using celebrities when it comes to talent, I've worked with Will Ferrell and Queen Latifah and Lauren Conrad. I've worked with a lot of them doing campaigns. Is that it has to fit. There has to be a real reason why they're in there. They can't just be in there to be in there. You know what I mean? And so the brands that do really well, that use celebrities well, are the ones that I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head, and I really can't. But if you're gonna spend that kind of money to use a celebrity, it really has to have a reason for it. Like I guess when they did when Samsung, when it was it was like a washer dryer brand that did a deal with Kristen Bell and Dax Shepard, who are parents in real life. They just had a kid. The whole campaign was about washing clothes and the inundation of day-to-day life and chores. And knowing them, not personally that well, but I know about them, is that they don't have tons of nannies and maids. That's just not how they roll. So the ad was really organic. It felt like, they were really organic in that spot. And so when you do that, it works. If you just throw them in like a Cardi B, it could be anybody. That could be Cardi. It could be, Lady Gaga. It doesn't matter. When it gets to that point, when they're interchangeable and the campaign is interchangeable, that means your campaign's crap.
Yeah.
Right? If any celebrity can do it, then your campaign's a piece of crap. So I think a lot of, the Super Bowl, I think to me is really a very unique animal in marketing. I wouldn't really hold it out as a bellwether of anything in marketing outside of just a lot of egos, pushing to say they have a Super Bowl spot. And I've been on the agency side. That's exactly how it is. It's very political. And it's really about, getting that bonus or getting that executive creative director credit more than, really doing something for your client.
Yeah. I wonder if there's going to be any shift in, the mode of advertising in there, but, perhaps not. The Super Bowl is a very traditional in itself. It is a very traditional model of thing. And it doesn't seem to be going away despite like the, even the way that we watch TV is transforming. So, but yeah, I mean, thank you so much for coming on today. It was
my pleasure.
Great conversation. And
I hope I gave you guys something good to nosh on. So.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of good stuff to think about, really, for both us and our audience.
Great.
So,
Very cool.
Yeah, thank you for everyone who tuned in to watch Shareity Speaks this week, and thank you to Mike for being our guest today, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day or week wherever you are.
Thanks, everybody.